Hey everybody, welcome to another weekly OctoChat. My name's Ryan Russo, and today I've got Derek and Michael with me. How are y'all doing? I see Michael's drinking his coffee. Is that my
Doing,
wish?
I'm doing good. Oh yeah, that's the Death Wish one. Yeah, yeah. I now I'm not like so when I first started drinking it, my head felt really enlarged and like I was sweating and I was like, oh, this is awesome. So I was like, but now it's like I think my body's starting to get used to it because I keep drinking it every day.
I worked at an office where they replaced their like regular coffee pot with a Keurig, and they had like Death Wish Keurigs in it.
Yeah,
It's like too much caffeine.
I don't like Keurigs in general. Like I feel like they're very watery. Like I just don't like the taste like in any of them. I don't know why. I have like a dripper, so like it's good for like 2 to 3 cups, and then I just like pour in from the kettle, and then I kind of have like this like big glass thing that I can pour into my cup. It's pretty cool.
Oh
Good
no,
investment.
we're in danger of turning this from a DevOps chat to a coffee chat because I could go on and on about.
Anything's possible, man. You never know what the world will reveal.
Surely about 80% of the world's techies are fueled by caffeine anyway. If it's not that, sugar, probably a combination of both.
Yeah.
We should do that. We'll just have a special coffee edition. Coffee lovers and octopus lovers and DevOps lovers come. I'll talk about my AeroPress and my method for brewing.
Beer, beer flavouring as well.
There you go.
Ryan, you did a webinar with Redgate, wasn't it, where you sampled a beer whilst you spoke about database DevOps?
Oh, are we going? Let's plug DBL. Yeah, it's a podcast. Chris and Chris from Redgate. They do a database like a SQL Ops
Nice.
podcast. They talk all things databases and SQL, and we did a conversation about it. We actually talked about Kubernetes more on that.
That was it. Yeah.
But they have a different beer each time, and so I got actually it was really cool because they're in the UK, but Redgate has offices here in the States, and somebody was traveling over there, so they took a local Texas beer up to them. So
Nice.
got to have a Texas flavor for that episode. Yeah, we should link that episode in the notes. It was pretty good.
Yeah, that's cool. No, right. Yeah, like well, actually, that's quite a good one about Kubernetes because this week I did a webinar on Kubernetes on Wednesday. Actually, it's really good. I really enjoyed it. Obviously, how it works is we normally get a couple of weeks beforehand to really focus on the content, do some learning, and it was great because I jumped in to do some learning on Kubernetes using Microsoft Learn, some Pluralsight.
Nice.
There's a couple other bits in there as well, but just generally Googling stuff, finding out a bit more there because I've kind of touched with it and dabbled with it, but never at that level. So it was really good. And obviously Sean Cessna did one of the other continuous delivery architects at Octopus did the demo as well, and it went really well. And it's such a cool platform. It's complex though. Like there's so many different things. You've got that. It was like jumping into it. You've got obviously. For people who are, if you're interested, check it out. But like that, you've got cluster, which is the same as like what we would have with VMware, or Hyper-V. You'd have that cluster. Then you've got the node, which is a bit like a VM host. And then you've got pod, which are very similar to virtual machines, but it's more like you abstract that OS away. So there's been a lot of cool stuff there, and then obviously still with the networking stack, and we done it on AKS, and it was really cool. I really enjoyed it, and I learned some stuff doing it as obviously learned some stuff there as well. So
Nice.
that was really cool. You guys done you obviously, Ryan, you've done some stuff with Kubernetes, but Michael as well. What's your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I mean, I started with Kubernetes like probably 3 years ago or so. I built a solution that essentially moved the company that I was working for at the time. It moved our application from just like a standard, on an EC2 instance. It was a Java-based application, so a bunch of Java binaries running. I moved those binaries to containers, and then eventually we orchestrated them with Kubernetes. So yeah, I mean, I enjoy it. I think that eventually it's going to come to a point like where we started off with raw Kubernetes, right? Where, we had to spin up master nodes and worker nodes and run them on VMs. And then we started to see, EKS and AKS and GKE, all from Google Cloud and Azure, Amazon. So that like level of handling the master node has now gone away. And the master node, for everybody who's watching that isn't aware of Kubernetes, the master node is what or where your API is sitting. So all the APIs, all the API calls that you're making, like for the pods and the deployments and the containers and all of that, like anytime you're running any Kubernetes commands, it's going to the master node. And then the worker node is where like your containers and your pods sit. So I think at some point what's going to happen is there's almost going to be no more worker nodes, no more master nodes. You're just going to be interacting with an API somewhere. So like, for example, in Azure, like AKS will turn into no more worker nodes, and you're literally just going to be hitting an API. That's what I'm assuming will happen at some point, because there's just that layer of abstraction that's like no longer needed or necessary. But yeah, I enjoy it. I think some really good resources are like Nigel Putin. He has done a great Kubernetes stuff and Docker stuff out there. There is, I forget if it's out already or if it's coming out shortly. There's a Kubernetes in a Month of Lunches book. So that's obviously really cool if you want to learn something in 30 days or so. I love the Month and Lunches series. There's some like really, really good stuff in there. It's actually how I learned PowerShell many years ago. So
Jeff Hicks.
What's that?
Is that Jeff Hicks? The
PowerShell one? Yeah, Don Jones and Jeff Hicks. Yeah.
I may still have a copy of that somewhere in my mess of an office.
I got mine right up there where all my other books are stacked up over there.
Yeah, Kubernetes, it's complex, but it's it's easy to kind of get started with if you're doing like a simple demo and you take like an existing container and like you're not building it from scratch. So I haven't done it in a like production app, like a product sense, but I've done a lot of demos with it. And it's easy, I think, like getting a simple one set up, but it's like it gets very complex, very quickly.
Yeah, it's easy if you're not like it's easy if you're not managing it yourself. Like I've managed Kubernetes clusters where I was managing the master and the worker nodes, and like that when you get to that point, you are literally like managing the containers that are running core DNS, the containers that are running your networking layer. There's like Weave and stuff like that. Like Weave is very, very popular as a network protocol for Kubernetes. But once you're managing those nodes, that's where like things can get a little tricky. And I even recommend like anybody who's interested in Kubernetes, I recommend spinning up a few VMs or EC2 instances or virtual machines in Azure or whatever, and managing like just in a development environment, master nodes and worker nodes and getting them up and running, because I don't think that you can't know the insides of Kubernetes and what's actually going on until you do that. Especially with all these services and stuff like in Azure and Google and Amazon, because that layer of abstraction, like you don't have to touch anything anymore. You don't have to manage it anymore. So if you really want to dive deep into it, definitely roll your own raw clusters for sure.
Yeah, I was jumping into it, and I started looking at like tents and tolerations, and I was like, oh, wait a minute. Like, oh, let's just use AKS.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, definitely with that, it's quite interesting. Yeah, I think the thing is though is it's still, like it's one of the things. It's a bit like Fight Club. I find, it's like it's people who are doing Kubernetes often don't want to talk about doing Kubernetes. It's like it's quite funny, but whereas people who don't do Kubernetes always seem to want to talk about Kubernetes.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Yeah, no, it's definitely cool, man. It's listen, like we've seen the Docker Swarm battles and Kubernetes. I forget what the other big one was. I want to say like Oasis. I don't think it was Oasis though.
Great though.
Yeah. Yeah, I forget which one it was off the top of my head. But obviously, point is Kubernetes is the victor, and will continue to be the victor. And I've used other orchestration platforms as well, like with Docker Swarm and stuff, and it's good. Like there's nothing wrong with it. It's just Kubernetes marketing beat out Docker Swarm marketing, I guess. I don't know.
It's interesting because obviously you're using Docker containers, but Swarm isn't the default. It seems to be obviously Kubernetes coming out. It seems to have kind of taken over.
Well, the thing is like about like containerization in general is like when people think of containerization, they think like right away Docker, and like it's not necessarily the case. Like Docker isn't the only containerization engine out there. Like you have LXC, which is Linux-based containers. It's literally Docker used to use LXC as the backend. That's why in the beginning of Docker it wouldn't run on Windows, but now it's using Container D like as the actual engine in the back. So there's like a bunch of different containerization engines, and you can run most of them in Kubernetes. I don't know if I'm making this up or if I read it somewhere. I forget, but I read or thought that Kubernetes or AKS will be using Container D as the default instead of Docker. So you could definitely see that changing as well for sure.
Yeah, I think I was in. I watched some of Nigel's Pluralsight videos on Docker, and I think he had like a good explanation of like the beginnings of Docker and how it started, and now it's being kind of broken up into compartments or modules, and how
Yep.
they can be kind of replaced and by different things.
Yep. Yeah.
Super modular. That's one of the things. And, I mean, obviously, if you are interested, I would recommend checking out the webinar. It was quite cool. We just so you know, it's on Octopus. YouTube.com/Octopus Deploy. We do have just a cut down version, so that's just a demo, and then we do have another video of the full. If you're interested in finding a bit more about pods and nodes and kubelets and all that sort of cool stuff. But yeah.
Eric, did you get any good questions from the Q&A?
Oh, we got some really good ones actually. And you know, I was thinking, because obviously you've got Ask Octopus now. You've obviously been publishing Ask Octopus. I've been meaning to get some of those. So that's something I might do. But yeah, I think we got quite a few. Really, if I'm being honest, I can't remember them. I'm really sorry. But
I was like, I didn't expect you to. It's been a few days, and webinars are super draining. But it's like, yeah, I those are perfect for follow-up videos, so we can make little pieces of content for people out of.
Yeah, you've got one coming up out in the next hour or so, don't you?
Yeah, today's Ask. Oh, wrong side mirror. Today's Ask Octopus is it's a question from our Runbooks webinar, or I guess our release webinar. It's about Runbooks from the release webinar 2 weeks ago. So short little 2-minute video showing how to do some global runbook retention policies with the API.
Yeah, I really like I do like the new enhancements in Runbooks. It makes it. It took a bit of getting used to with it after like the publishing side of things. That I was so used to, yeah, cool, go, no problem. There's a bit more control now around it, and that kind of takes me to my next question actually for both of you. Automation for ops. Obviously, I come from an ops background. I have been doing a lot of DevOps. Obviously, Michael, you started out in infrastructure as well, and you've kind of went full blown developer. I haven't quite made it to that level. And then obviously, Ryan, you come from, so we've kind of got everyone kind of dotted around the spectrum.
Yeah.
What do you guys think about ops? And do you think everybody needs to be a developer in ops?
A developer, no. I think this has come up on Twitter like recently, right? Or it's one of those kind of topics that come up every once in a while. Like, ops are now being pushed to become developers, like learning languages, learning frameworks, and stuff like that. And I'm not on the ops side, so I can't really speak to that. So I don't think they would necessarily have to know those things. But as we get further into this, kind of DevOps world, DevOps journey, the lines are kind of getting blurred, because I could say from a developer standpoint, I wouldn't do that much like ops scripting. Like now I do like probably I would choose PowerShell. That's kind of like the common language for .NET and our Windows ops and developers, right? Like we know developers know a little bit of PowerShell. Ops probably know way more PowerShell. But on the other hand, like if you're I don't want to say just a developer, but if your main task day to day is doing web development, you probably don't know a lot about the infrastructure or the networking side of things. And now with things like Kubernetes, you kind of have to know a little bit more.
Yeah. I think my view on this is a lot of people don't share this view. So, but I think that if you're writing code, if you're writing PowerShell code, you're like writing Python code, you're doing automation. And I'm not saying like you got to be creating classes and initiating objects and writing the next Twitter. Like, I'm not saying you got to be doing that, but if you're writing, 5 lines of code, 10 lines of code, 20 lines of code, etc., congratulations, you're a developer in today's standards. So in today's standards, it is, you're writing code, you're considered a developer. Now, you have to understand, like, there are many different kinds of developers. Like, for me, people may put me in that developer category, but, like, I don't have a standard computer science background. So, like, even this is a conversation that I was having with Derek and my boss, John Bristow, this week, where I was like, I feel like I'm missing gaps in, like, that computer science knowledge, and it's something that, like, I want to learn, I want to gain more. So you don't have to think about it like, you need that hardcore background to be considered a developer. So in my perspective, I think that if you were in operations today, I don't think that you can get by with the new tools today without doing some sort of automation, and that automation typically falls under some sort of code. Like, for example, let's say infrastructure as code. Let's take Terraform. There are, like, companies that there's developers strictly just writing Terraform code all day. That's what they do, but they're on the development team. And you could argue and say, hey, it's infrastructure as code. That's not like program code, but it is. There's for loops, there are variables, there are types that you can define, there are resources that you are creating, there's an algorithm, you're creating steps, there's an algorithm there in place for you to create your infrastructure. So that's my take on it. My take on it is, you got to know something. Like, if you want to call yourself a scripter, a developer, an infrastructure as code person, an ops person that writes code when they have to, whatever you want to call it, you're doing something in code, something.
Right. Yeah, I think that's a good distinction. It depends on what you define as a developer, right? Like, if you define a developer as somebody who's writing product code or web code or things like that, that's different than somebody in ops writing scripts. And it's not less, it's just different. So yeah, I wouldn't say you'd have to know, like, the latest JavaScript framework or the latest web framework to do that. But yeah, it's like, at the end of the day, PowerShell's code, like Terraform scripts, that's scripting, you're coding your infrastructure.
Yep, exactly.
So, well, this is something that I've had problems with over the years, right? Because it is, honestly, people have called me a developer, and I'm like, I'm not a developer. Like, what I write is, is rubbish. Like, if you look at it compared to what, I look at some people and they're, like you guys obviously writing code, and it's like, and I'm like, yeah, I'm writing like 10 lines of code, and it's, and it's doing something cool, but like that, I think that's where I think I've never considered myself a developer, because I'm not making products, but I'm creating infrastructure, right? And pipelines and whatnot. So I tend to have a kind of singular view when I'm doing something, whereas developers tend to be building a product, like Michael was saying earlier on, building the next Twitter, right? You're building a product, whereas I'm building, I can see what you're saying. Like, I've always went with, I'm a scripter, not a developer.
Yeah.
Because the thing is like, I guess once you do, like, once you are come into for each loops and functions, and yeah, I can kind of start to see that. But I don't know. I think that's where, and it's funny. I've done DevOps, but I don't like I've been a DevOps engineer in the past, right? And I absolutely dislike the job title, because it's like, you've got ops, you've got devs, right? You've got and my favorite combination is dev plus ops, right? Because you still need ops, right? Because you need people who know the full stack from an infrastructure perspective. You think about it, hey, I can't connect to my application, right? Almost most time is not, there's some issue in infrastructure, something's been overloaded, etc. But you look at BGP, for instance, right? And that's routing protocols, that's completely external. That's something entirely separate, right? But like DNS, right? DNS is another thing. Stupid simple, as Bob would say, but at the same time, it's stupid simple, but it's incredibly complex at the same time as well. Yep. So on the layer, yeah, but when you get, I think it's like, it comes back to that T-shaped learning, I think, where you do kind of like want to do that, but that's things like I've always struggled calling myself a developer. And if you ever see my scripts, you'd probably wonder if I'm a scripter as well. But that's something else. But yeah, I mean, I think that's the thing is like I think you need to know and have tools that you can use and make sure like PowerShell, like you can use it, or like obviously Michael and I did a CLI live stream on Monday.
Yeah.
I fell in love with the CLI because is like Azure CLI because it just makes my life much easier. It is, one line of code and I'm creating a full bit of infrastructure. So that's where, whereas PowerShell, yeah, it's great, but it also gets incredibly complex as well.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. No, I definitely agree. Like, I think that I agree with the DevOps title thing. I very much believe that 9 times out of 10, it should just be like a build and release engineer title or something like that. In terms of like the actual practice, I mean, if you're in a DevOps role or you're in a BNR build and release role, or you're in a cloud engineering role, I mean, it's Python, PowerShell. I mean, like, I think you can really get by with those. Obviously, HCL as Terraform gets more and more popular, which it already is, and you can also branch out to other things. Like I've automated in C#, I've automated in JS, I've automated in Golang. Like, you could do it in any language as long as there's an SDK available for you.
Yeah, I did several years ago now. Automation with like Hangfire, the schedule task library for .NET, C#, and tying like Octopus together with a bunch of random systems that didn't have APIs really.
Right.
Or Bash.
Bash.
Yeah, I can't believe I forgot Bash. Bash is obviously Bash. I believe Bash to be a full-blown programming language. A lot of people will disagree, but you can build full programs in Bash, like if you wanted to.
Yeah, Bash is super important. And that's things that I'm on a Mac, and I use Bash so much locally, just because it's easy to use. Saying that onto something else I want to share is I've got a new laptop coming. So obviously for people, I'd love to hear what people's thoughts are. As I've went and bought a Dell XPS 15-inch with 64 gig of RAM,
Nice,
i9 and 2 1 terabyte SSD drives.
Wait, one terabyte. You got 2 different 1 terabyte drives? Man,
I got one in. So yeah, I went for the Samsung VLAN SSD 97 Evo. Peter's saying 30. My MacBook is 13-inch, but to be honest, Peter, what I've got is with the dual monitors, the laptop actually sits off to the sides. I don't actually use it as a laptop. I use a laptop more like a desktop. It actually sits under my light, which obviously that's here, so I'm pointing to the wrong side. So it's actually here, up there. So it is interesting, but yeah, it's.
What kind of cooling setup do you have for your desk now that you want to be running that machine?
To be honest, obviously with the stuff that we're doing with OBS now as well, that's killing my machine. Like my Mac's got an i7. It's only 2 years old. Get i7, half a terabyte SSD, and 16 gig of RAM, and it just started really struggling recently. Using multiple browsers, and like Chrome's like 15.5 gig by itself, right? That's
I cut Chrome. I switched to Firefox.
To the new Edge, actually, with Chromium.
Yeah.
I like it. Yeah, I'm not a fan of the old Edge or Internet Explorer, but the new Edge is quite good.
Yeah, I've been playing with it, and do you know, honestly, I installed it on my Mac and I didn't hate it. But yeah, like Firefox, I've made the switch over to Firefox, but I use Chrome for personal browsing, and then Firefox for that. And I have been playing about with it, and Safari's used basically for, hey, wait a minute, something's down, but is it really? So I use Safari for that.
So I've got a XPS that's a few years older. I love it. I've had a few like minor issues with it, other than that and the webcam placement, but I think they fixed that in your version, right? It's like in a normal spot.
Yeah,
I
it's. I don't use it because obviously we've got proper, we've got DSLRs. This is I don't normally look this handsome in real life. I'm much more kind of haggard looking. It's good lighting. So we've got Peter saying he uses a fairly mid-spec XPS 13-inch, so he prefers the 13-inch, but he uses a Mac Mini. I love Mac. I used to have one at work I used to use for testing and stuff like that. Those were super powerful little machines for all sorts of things.
I thought about getting one the other day.
Stuff in them, like the RAM
Yeah.
used to be able to replace years
They
ago.
are really nice. They are really nice. So, got a question actually from Idyllisk. So people are just saying, just put it into a container, so it's so much easier. Are they simplifying stuff a tad? Just to go back to what we're talking about, I think so as well.
I think so, because I mean, if you've got the experience, maybe like putting it into a container may sound easy or may sound straightforward. Building the container image itself with the application probably isn't that many steps, but there's a lot of stuff that goes into that. Like, how are you going to deploy it? How are you changing the config out? Port forwarding in that case, like which ports is it using?
Yeah, because obviously, like you guys are aware, obviously we've got Octopus Cloud on AKS. That took from us starting to do that. That took almost 12 months or something like that. And don't get me wrong, a lot of that was us porting it to .NET Core. Like, see if you're running something really small and you want to containerize it, that is like a lot easier. But when you're building out proper SaaS products, it's way harder because that's when you are kind of jumping in and going to a deeper level. What do you think, Michael?
Yeah, I disagree. I play devil's advocate. So this is just my point of view. If you're like spinning up something to test, like a Python container or a .NET Core container or something, cool. Like, yeah, it's really straightforward, and you just kind of Docker run, specify what port you want to run it on, and that's it. But if you are moving a full-fledged application from, say, on-prem or running in virtual machines or EC2 instances or something, and you try to move that over to a container and you think that it's going to be like that, absolutely not. You're number one, right? When you're in, let's say you're in a virtual machine, you're in a server, there's an operating system, there's a kernel, there's a shell, there's things that you're able to run on that system. You have X amount of RAM, you have X amount of CPU, wherever your networking is. So if you're in if you're in Azure using virtual networks, you have different firewall rules. You have inbound, outbound connectivity. So that's your application. When you're in a container, that networking now, you have to set up where that networking is. Containers, you have to expose them on certain ports. You have networking outside of the containers, outside of Kubernetes, and you have networking inside. Because remember, Docker, Kubernetes, it all has its own different networking that it uses for pods and for containers and for deployments to be able to interact with internally. So that's one thing, you have to set up the networking. Then the application itself. So let's say, I'm just throwing applications out there. You got a SQL database for your application, you're running Nginx for your web server, and you got 2 binaries for your application, let's just say. That means now you have 4 to 5 new containers that you're managing, that you're spinning up. You're running those web servers. You're running SQL database. Oh, by the way, containers are ephemeral. So now you're running SQL inside of a container, and it's pointing to somewhere else. Is it pointing to RDS? Is it pointing to Azure SQL? Anything like that. Then once you actually get that container running, or that pod or whatever you're running in Kubernetes or just raw Docker, once you get that application running, then you have to figure out, okay, I just did all these things manually to piece it together. How do I automate this process? Are you creating your own orchestration for that? Are you using something like Octopus? Are you using something like Azure DevOps or GitHub Actions or GitLab or whatever? Then how are you doing it? So let's say, for example, you have secrets and you got to pass in passwords or something where those secrets getting stored. Maybe you used Azure Key Vault before, but maybe you want to look at something like HashiCorp Vault, or you want some sort of integration so you can make calls from your container to Azure Key Vault. And then that's another step of an automation. So That was a long-winded explanation. I just got really into that conversation. Sorry.
Right.
I
So
think the agreement,
hold on. Are
though,
you saying? I think you might be agreeing with us.
yeah, it's saying just put it in a container is oversimplifying, like moving an application.
Oh, I think you said simplifying.
No, it's oversimplifying the work to be done.
Yep, I agree with you guys. Sorry.
It's a similar conversation that I've had like years ago. We had a product owner who's like, "Hey, can we move our application off on-prem and just move it into the cloud?" I'm like, no, like we can't just move it to the cloud. There's a lot of work to be done.
Well, that's the thing. Like same thing with Kubernetes and with containers. People are like, "Yo, let's just throw it in containers." I'm like, you don't understand what you're asking. You're asking for 6 months of a POC, and then you're asking for another 6 months of work.
Yeah,
like it's funny because like cloud has always really annoyed me, like the general term, because it's like because like we'll just move it to the cloud, like yeah, it's just someone else's data center, like because I used to run and obviously it's a long time ago now, but I used to help run data centers, right? I would take the drive would go down, like okay, jump the train, go to the data center, show my key card, go in, take out the drive, put it back in, and it was it's fun at the time, but like you look at it now and it's like wouldn't do that again. But the thing is, the cloud. I used to make jokes like obviously it was a sunny day, bad availability today for the cloud. The cloud's down, and people didn't like that. But at the same time, it is like that kind of we just put it up to that's fine if you want 3 times the cost. I'm a big cloud advocate, but it needs to be done right. With thought. It needs to be deliberately done.
Well, and it changes. Like this was a legacy app that was like not built with anything cloud in mind. It's like we could move everything to the cloud. It would take some time, but just moving it as is, you're looking at like a really large build because like none of it's optimized for like cloud infrastructure.
Yeah, and I mean that's the other huge part of it is that 9 times out of 10, if you're running your application on-prem, there's going to be architectural changes in your application itself to be able to run properly in the cloud. I mean, listen, at the end of the day, like you can pick up any binary and throw it in the cloud and run it. Like that's fine, but it doesn't mean that it's going to be optimized. Like it'll probably run worse for one. And then you have to worry about like just the architectural aspect of changing everything. Like this is a company-wide decision. This is not just hey, let's just call the IT department and see what they say. No, this is a company-wide decision to move to the cloud and a company-wide decision to move from virtual machines to containers. Now, if you're like a new company and you're starting out in the cloud, like you obviously don't have to worry about that. You got a leg up. But if you're a company that's been around 10, 20 years and you're like, yeah, I want to adapt new practices, it's a very good idea to adapt new practices because obviously that's the direction that everybody is going in. But just don't think that it's like going to happen like that.
You do get people when they do some really cool stuff, but at the same time, that's the thing because you like Azure, for instance, have a migration service that you can do, but these things they're like 10 terabyte boxes, and you have to copy that data over. You have to then at that point also pretty much stop using that data as well, right? Yep. Then it takes like a week. Like what tell everybody, need to stop using the data. Why? Like it's somewhere in someone's van somewhere, like being shipped. To actually, like obviously there are other ways that you can do it, and obviously you basically seed like over the data. But I mean, it isn't just something like that's depending on like startups starting the cloud. Yeah, definitely right. Then companies are like 10 years old. Yeah, cool. That's no problem. That kind of probably maybe like 12 to 24 months proof of concept, maybe migration. But, you're talking massive organizations. You're talking a 5-10 year project to become cloud first. Speaking of that, Octopus Cloud, we've got a question about Terraform. I think this might be a good one for you, Michael. Terraform is on 0.11 on cloud. Obviously, he's asking, Peter's asking, we're 2 releases behind. When are we going to update it? Do you know anything about that?
I don't know anything about that from a product perspective. But what I can tell you is there's such a huge difference between 0.11 and 0.12. I mean, to the point where I know people that work at very large organizations and they're like, everything is broken. Like it took them a few months to like fix it. And of course, the thing is, like, you have to remember Terraform is still in beta, which is hilarious.
I forgot.
So here's the thing. It's you're going to see those changes, and I think that I'm totally speculating right now, but I think that very much a big reason why Terraform is still in beta, because those big jumps, like, there's no easy way to go from 0.11 to 0.12. With that being said, from a product perspective, I don't have an answer. I apologize. From a technical perspective, what you can do is you can run like a Chocolatey script or something to Choco install Terraform, like in your process for your steps. And then you can have like a step in there that'll say like run install Chocolatey. And then at that point, you'll be running the newest version, or Chocolatey Terraform. You'll be running the newest version of Terraform throughout your build process or your deployment process.
Yeah. For Octopus Cloud, you can set up a Linux worker that has Terraform 12 or 13, .12, .13 on it, and at least in the latest version of Octopus, and for I'd have to check what I installed. It was 12 or 13. I think it was .13 because I was working with a customer on this. They had the same question. They're like, we want to use a newer version because they were trying to set up an AKS cluster and they wanted to use some latest features that you could only use with the latest Terraform. So if you have a Linux worker that you're set up, a static one that you set up yourself, install the version of Terraform you want. And when you deploy using that worker, it will use that version of Terraform. Now, previously, you had to set a variable for the custom executable, but I didn't have to do that in this case. I haven't, this was actually going to be a future Ask Octopus. I just haven't tracked down when you have to set that custom variable or not, or that system variable. Because I didn't want to be like, set this in these cases and don't set it. If it's not required anymore, I don't want to include it at all. But yeah, at least on my Linux worker, I didn't have to set it. It uses .13. The catch there is you'll need to put your Terraform scripts into a package because the linter or whatever we use to check the syntax in the inline Terraform script window, it's going to check for .11 syntax. But if you use a package with a TF file and TF-vars file, it works fine.
And with the Octopus Cloud, we're rolling out Linux workers and the ability to select Windows workers as well. I think that's really cool. It feels like something that see when I heard about it, I was like, yeah, that sounds like something we should have had. Like, it just felt so obvious. But I think I think it's going to be awesome, so that you can basically you can do that. So you'll be able to select your own, because it's interesting. Obviously, looking at it, I was actually looking at Octopus Cloud yesterday, and how obviously we're spinning up containers, and we've got containers all over the world doing this work for us, which is really cool.
Yep, for sure.
Peter mentioned he solved that by downloading the PowerShell and setting the custom executable path. That's cool.
Yeah. There's definitely going to be a few different ways that you can do it, which is great. So yeah, there's definitely those workarounds in there for you.
Yeah, but for when it'll be supported as like the default Terraform version that Octopus bundles, like I don't know that one either.
Right. So how's Michael? How's your Golang going?
It's good. Still working on the Terraform provider, which is really cool.
See the ticker?
I see Terraform is still in beta, and the Terraform provider is not in beta. So I apologize for everybody that's listening. My puppy is squeaking under my desk, and if you saw before, I tried to throw her toy over there, and then she just brought it right back. So, it's going really good. This week was very, very successful for the Terraform provider. Fixed a few bugs. Got some new code in there. Got some pull requests out there. We're closing in on we're closing in on it being beta, which is great. We got a few more things that we have to do. Obviously this is it's not going to be a V1 or anything like that because it's not feature complete. So it's still going to be very much like a 0. something. But it'll be usable. It'll be something that everybody can start playing around with and stuff, which is going to be great. And then at some point, not going to announce it just yet, because I don't know what direction we're going in, but we will be revamping the way that the client currently looks, the Go SDK. So we're going to be revamping that from a Terraform perspective, and from like an HCL and how you're creating your resources. That's not going to change. But what we will be looking at changing is everything under the hood from a performance perspective. It's going to perform much better. It's going to be much easier to create, because right now we're pretty much hand rolling everything. So we're looking to, auto generate a lot of that stuff, which is going to be cool. But yeah, we're still looking into it, still testing some stuff. If you look at like AWS and Azure and stuff like that, they actually auto gen their clients, but they've created that auto gen internally. So everybody's kind of like using their own essentially at this point. So we're looking at a few different options.
And just one thing, obviously, just to clear up, the Terraform provider, which is not in beta. Sorry, I did make that mistake. I'll just change that just now. That is separate from a config as code work. That is obviously Peter's asked about that. That is that is separate from that. So it's something that, well, obviously we can't. Michael can obviously comment further on that, but it's something that will be done completely separate from config. Config as code is actually looking pretty good, and we should have something that you'll be able to play with in the next couple of months. There might be a big announcement about that soon. Can't share that just yet, but just something to keep an eye out on.
Yeah. So just to clarify that, config as code is to automate processes in HCL inside of your project, right? So you're inside of your project and you're automating all of your deployments and stuff. The Terraform provider is everything before that. So like, for example, config as code is automating inside of your project. The Terraform provider would be creating that project. And then once that project is created, then automating it with config as code. So it's that infrastructure aspect, those creating life cycles, creating variables if you wanted to, creating the projects, creating the project groups, all of that stuff. So it's supposed to be a smooth transition, so you can literally automate everything with HCL pretty much. I'm excited that we have questions this week.
Yeah.
First week we have questions.
Yeah, there'll be loads actually.
Good joke in there. I saw something about Kubernetes or Docker being someone else's shipping container instead of somebody else's service.
Yeah. It's funny. I'm going to take credit for this, because the minute I said the XPS, that was like all the questions blew up at that point. It was like, so we just need to buy a £3,000 laptop every week to get questions.
That's all we have to do. Yeah, I have my I don't know what direction it's in. Over there somewhere is there it is. That's my Surface Book 3 over there. So I'm in that crowd. I love my Surface.
You've got a lot of hardware. Like I thought. I mean, I've got a nice setup. I've got my MacBook. I've got a ZenBook. I've got my LXPS coming. I've got a server down there. But you're desktop up. You're Surfaced up, MacBook up. You've got some serious equipment there.
Yeah, I got so what I'm talking to you on right now is I have two 27-inch screens connected to my custom built desktop. I have my mic here, my webcam, and my DLSR, and then also my light. That's why I look very shiny right now, because I have a light over here. And then to the left of me, I have a 36-inch curved monitor. I have another 24-inch sitting in landscape. And then where the Surface Book is over here, behind it, I have a 32-inch curved monitor. So yeah, I'm looking to actually revamp things a little bit. So the couch behind me, like, I don't sit on it, and like my dog just eats it. So I'm like, maybe I should just like get rid of it, because it's going to be gone in like a week anyways after she eats half of it. So I'm probably going to get rid of that. And I actually just ordered some new shelves. So in this corner here, this one right here, I'll have like some shelves going down, and then like some books and stuff. And then I'm going to have some more shelves above me over here that I ordered as well. So I'm thinking about just moving that desk, moving that couch out, and then maybe putting this desk on that side in the back. We'll see.
Nice. I've done a lot of work this year on my office.
Yeah.
Actually, I will show you. You can't see it, unfortunately, because I've got a green screen behind me. But I went and got like a big wraparound desk and got proper shelving, and it makes so I've actually got all my geek stuff up here. I've got my drones and stuff.
Wow.
It is nice having a nice space. So, question, Justin, is will you be moving away from the Terraform provider or being able to define the process? I'd love to just stay in Terraform and not have to transition to configuration as code. So, what that is, Justin, is configuration as code is actually going to be in HCL. So that's going to be effectively Terraform anyway. So, like that, when you're defining that, you'll be able to write HCL, so it'll be much like you're doing anyway. So the one, and with that, you'll be able to then put it into source control, branch, all that sort of good stuff. But we do have something coming out very soon where you'll see it in great detail. Also, if you want to provide feedback or get any questions on octopus.com/Slack, if you're not in, sign up. We have a config as code channel there where Rob Wagner, who's kind of leading that aspect, and he's communicating changes and bits coming up as well. So lots of great stuff coming out there. Just something to be aware of. But yes, check it out on Slack, and obviously feedback's always, we're very keen to get some feedback on that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And yeah, like that's a good point, Derek. So when I say HCL, what Terraform is written in, like when you're writing Terraform code, it's HCL code. You're not writing Terraform, you're using Terraform, but the actual programming language that you're writing in is called HCL, HashiCorp configuration language. So that code, like the way that you write it, is going to be exactly the same. And like regarding your question to just stay in Terraform, so here's the thing: configuration as code is a product that's built inside of Octopus. So you're going to want to use both because you're going to need both. Once you're inside of Octopus, that's where you can configure what your steps and your deployments look like. But before you get there, you have to have something to automate your deployment. So either you're automating or you're manually creating projects, project groups, life cycles, and stuff like that right now. Maybe you're using PowerShell. Maybe you're using Octopus CLI. There are a bunch of different things that you could be using. But hopefully you're not manually doing it right now. And if you are manually doing it right now, that's where the Terraform provider will come into play for you and stuff like that. The other big thing too is like obviously the Terraform provider is going to be in beta for a while, very much so, versus config as code. It's
no. It's not in beta.
It's not in beta.
It's going to be not in beta for a while, then it'll be in beta for a while.
There you go. This is getting confusing. Yeah, I didn't need to get like stickers behind me where it just says Terraform provider is not in beta across my wall.
We need to grab like Terraform provider. Is Terraform provider in beta.com and just like status there.
No or yes.
Another point there too is like with the config as code, you can sync your process to like your application changes, right? So you add like a new container, a new service, a new what have you. You can add that step into your HCL within your Git branch or your Git repo directly versus updating your Terraform like provider, your Octopus config that's separate that you would have to run Terraform for. We're going to pull that in for you as part of config as code, and you won't have to like do something to update your process with that.
So I think too, like here's the thing, and I'm a little biased, so don't tell anybody. But if you're using like another solution, right? I'm not going to name any solutions, but let's say you're using another solution. Those solutions are all built around like, okay, the solution is in place. Now you can do the thing. What we're saying is, okay, the solution isn't in place yet. Here's a way to get to it so you can do the thing. Like we're giving like the full life cycle of from literally start, there is no Octopus or there is no project or no project group or no life cycles or anything. And then you move over and here's the whole thing that you can do the thing with. So it's the full life cycle. Like it's not just, okay, you're in some tool now and now you have all this automation, but like the biggest thing for me always in any tool that I've ever used from a CI/CD perspective is like, what happens before that? Like there's no help for anybody to like actually get it up and running, which is where the Terraform provider obviously comes into play.
That's cool. You've been tweeting as well about GitHub Actions. You guys done much on it yet with the Dev 2 competition?
Yeah, I love GitHub Actions. I think it's really cool. I put in for that hackathon for Dev2. I created something that you can use the Octopus CLI within GitHub Actions to like create resources and stuff, or to list resources. So that's pretty cool. We'll see if I win that. If I, you know what, honestly, I don't even want to win the big gift card. I just want to win the gift card to Dev2 so I can get like a bunch of hats and stuff.
I have somewhere. I did the Octwilio one and I got a gift card. I have like every Dev2 shirt and a hat now. So yeah, I haven't signed up for the GitHub Actions one. I want to. I just haven't had like a creative spark yet on like what I'm going to put together for it. So I'll probably try and do something. It ends mid-September, early September.
Top of my head, to be honest.
Yeah, no, they're cool. They've done a few hackathons. I didn't join their last one, but they've been doing them pretty regularly. So that's pretty cool to be enjoying that. And a lot of good. Like I like looking at the results because the winners are always really good, but even the ones that are like runners up or like don't place are like really cool ideas.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, no, it's definitely some cool stuff, man. I've been playing around a lot with that, and I'm going to be posting a lot of my personal blog stuff in Dev2 as well. Shout out to Ryan. He helped me not mess up my SEO by posting the same blog in two places, so that was cool. So I'm going to definitely be posting more to Dev2, which is going to be great because that's obviously like a huge community. Like I just started checking out Dev2 like, I don't know, less than a year ago. Like I never checked it out, and it's a huge community, and there's so much cool stuff on there. A lot of people like host their blogs. They just don't even host it. Like they just use Dev2 for all their blogging and stuff, which is awesome. It's a really cool community, and there's some really cool stuff out there. And anybody from Dev2, if you're listening, it would be real cool if I could get one of those backpacks. The backpacks are cool. Maybe a shirt too. Maybe a hat too, if you want. It's up to you.
I do my blog drafts in Dev2. So whether it's for my personal blog or it's for Octopus blog, I usually draft in there. Their editor's like really nice, user friendly. So I use that, and then I copy the markdown over to wherever I'm going to end up hosting it.
You know what I do for that? I pay for something called Notion. So Notion is the exact same thing. You write it like normal, and then if you copy it out, it pastes out in Markdown automatically. Yeah, Notion's really, really cool. I love Notion. Adam Bertram actually showed me about Notion a while back, and I was like, oh, this is really sweet because you can like set up your headers and stuff. Like if you're typing, let's say you need like an H2 header, you can do // and then start typing in HE, and you'll see like header 1, header 2, header 3. So you don't have to remember the markdown. Like you don't have to remember it's 2 pound signs to get an H2 header, but then you could just copy it and paste it out somewhere like in VS Code or whatever, and it'll all be in markdown for you like that. So that's exactly what I do with the Octopus Deploy blog. I write all of my blogs in Notion, and then I just copy it and paste it into VS Code. All of my markdown is there for me already, and I don't have to do anything.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I love that for sure.
What I was thinking, actually, what do you guys think about running a competition this week? I was thinking...
This week?
Yeah, this week. Obviously, I know it's Friday. I mean until next Friday.
Until next Friday? Okay.
3 hours to win.
Thinking was, how about this for a competition idea? A T-shirt voucher for the best best home office setup posted to the random channel on Community Slack. What do you guys think?
Can I put mine in? Or am I not allowed?
We can't win it, right? But we can definitely share it. I mean, like, if you win Octopus, I've got enough Octopus T-shirts, if I'm being honest, but I'm just thinking, what do you guys think about putting because to be honest, I've got vouchers that were supposed to be for conferences this year. So I could share the code there, and you get a free T-shirt. You go into shop. Actually, want a shout out. If you do want an Octopus T-shirt, hoodie, stickers, etc., you can get them on shop.octopus.com. What do you guys think of running a competition?
That'd be cool. Yeah, it's that's a pretty easy competition too. You just take a picture of your setup and send it in.
I say that, but I'm gonna have to clean my office space before I take a picture of it.
You don't have to post, Ryan.
Okay, good. I am proud of my office setup though, but so I maybe will post. I just literally need to clean it. It's the reason why I'm using the green screen.
Yeah, no, that would be awesome. Yeah, I would just be keen to see everybody's setups, like in general. Like I think that would be really cool. Because I like looking at other people's setups because it gives me ideas for mine. Like, like I really want to get rid of that couch behind me. I thought it would just be cool to have a couch in my office, and I put like clothes on it and stuff and like pillows. Like I have my Python pillow. I'm like, oh man, I got to get some new ideas to play around with my office a little bit.
Looks like a perfect spot to put a table with a 3D printer.
That's what I'm saying. Like, you know what I really want? I want to put a table there for my coffee setup. I'm a coffee snob now, guys. Yeah. Just have my coffee set up there. Have my kettle plugged in and my dripper and all of my different coffees. That'd be cool.
Okay, so next contest will be to put a picture of your coffee setup in random on community Slack.
That works. I like that because it's funny. Like my coffee standards have definitely dropped since moving back to the UK, and British people don't get on my back. But I lived in Australia for 3 years, and I lived in Melbourne, and the coffee there was just. I've heard that best coffee I've ever, and it was like you would go into like a local, like what you would expect, like a fairly average coffee. Not trying to sound like a coffee snob, I used to be, but like that you go in, but you'd still get exceptional coffee. Like it just if you didn't do good coffee, the business went.
Yeah.
And I've got 3 myself, but I couldn't have it in the office. It would be too easy. Like mine's just downstairs in the kitchen for a reason because I've tried to kind of cut back because getting old, blood pressure, like I do two big cups of coffee a day, and then that's me. I'm done for the day. But
what you gotta do is you gotta get
massive.
You gotta become a coffee snob, and then you get this very elaborate coffee making process that takes too long to drink more than 2 cups a day. Like get a hand grinder, takes 20 minutes to grind beans for a cup of coffee. Get a AeroPress that you have to it's not drip, you have to work it.
Oh man, that's not very DevOps automation of you, Ryan.
No, it's not. It's gone the other way.
Wait, Harold has asked, what about, it's up on screen, what about the best messy workstation? That's you're going to win, Ryan.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. What I'll do is see what we can do. But yeah, I think definitely post your pixels in random this week.
Yeah.
We are getting to the end of today's stream, unfortunately. Yep. Is there any topics you want to cover quickly, chaps?
No. The only thing that I would say is that if you want to learn, or if you're already in the developer space, definitely check out Go. I've been having so much fun with Go, honestly. If you have a Pluralsight subscription, Nigel Poulton has a Go Fundamentals course on there, and it's really good. He's a super good instructor. I really love learning from him. And Go is just really fun in general. There's this saying that everybody keeps saying, and I'm starting to feel it now, is that it performs like C and writes like Python. So it can be a little weird at times. So for instance, I was messing around with listing out virtual machines the other day, and there was this method in the Go Azure SDK for list all under compute. And I was like, oh, this is cool. This will list all my virtual machines. And then it just listed out a bunch of hex. And I was like, this is weird. I don't know what's going on. But it's really cool. It's definitely a really fun language. So if you're looking for something fun to learn or something to throw a few hours into this weekend, definitely check out Go.
I'm going to do that because I've been wanting to get back into Python recently. I used to, in university, I did Python for a couple of years. It was just I found it. It was my favorite thing. I've had a hard time getting putting time towards it, but Go sounds really interesting too. I may take your lead.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, Python is cool too. Python was my primary language for so long. So I love it. I love Python as well. But I'm definitely falling more and more in love with Go.
This weekend, chaps, I'm going to be throwing my time into some naps.
Oh.
Yeah. I might do. To be honest, actually, I'm doing my Azure Architect exam, so I'll actually be doing a bunch of learning, unfortunately. But there will be some naps.
For me, I'm going to be on advice for another week, so I'll be answering your questions and advice in community Slack, or if you email advice@octopus.com. So send me some good questions. Check out the latest Ask Octopus, which usually come from those questions, and that's going to be me for the week.
Yeah. I miss naps, man. I used to love taking naps on the weekends, but I tried to nap last weekend, and my puppy keeps biting my toes. So
It's
I
cute.
just don't sleep anymore. Like I'm just like that's why I was saying. Remember, I was like today. I was like, is time even real? Because like I don't think it is anymore.
It's funny. I've got 2 chocolate Labradors, as you guys know, and honestly, I try and go for a nap. I've got one at the front of me, the one behind me, and I'm like, geez, guys, like, come on. But dogs and naps are also cool. Like it's funny. Like my wife comes in sometimes, and I'm sleeping with the dogs, and she's like, "How can I get in?" I'm like, yeah. Like, I don't know. I mean, come on. But yeah, that's actually a good point, Ryan, as well. Obviously, if you want to see us cover a particular topic as well next week, I won't be here next week. We've got another presenter joining us. I believe it'll be either Bob. I think it's Bob Walker next week. So obviously we'll have some fresh faces, and then the week after, Ryan will be rotating out. He's went and taking some time off.
4-day weekend for Labor Day. Yeah.
We'll be the same in the UK. There's a 4-day weekend, so I think a lot of people in the UK will probably take the Friday off. That's what I'm doing.
Can we have 3-day weekend? 3-day weekend?
I'm taking PTO on the Friday before, so I get a 4-day weekend for Labor Day.
Yeah,
Labor Day. What day is it? Oh man,
The
yeah,
first Monday in September is coming up. It's like Monday after next.
dude,
Monday
that's
week.
wild, man. I don't even know what day it is. I don't know what time it is anymore. I just kind of just stay awake and just hope for the best.
I do want to shout out Michael for his shirt choice today. We did not plan this, but we have like a theme going on. I don't know why Derek didn't join us, but
Oh yeah,
any red t-shirts? I'll pretty much do. Oh, look at you guys. I only do black, basically, or grey or blue. I'm quite dull when it comes to t-shirt colours. Right. Anyway, we have ran past the hour, chaps. It's been fun. It's been emotional, but it's time almost for the weekend for everybody, and not quite as close for you guys. But everybody, thank you very much for joining us. We'll be back at the same time next week. But yeah, reach out if you get any questions. You can catch myself at DevOps Derek on Twitter, Michael at the NJ DevOps Guy, Ryan Russo, and no dots, just he's lucky enough that there's no other Ryan Russos in the world that got that Twitter tag beforehand.
I got it before the wedding DJ in Minnesota. I snagged it.
Damn. Well, that's it. So no, that's everything. Obviously, community Slack, anything we can help, just get in touch. But everyone, have a great weekend.
cheers.